The plasma scorched the air 3 meters above Sergeant Maya Chen's head as she pressed herself against the collapsed wall. Dust and ash fell in thick curtains across what remained of the colony's central district. Her rifle was empty, ammunition spent, holding the line while civilians evacuated through the underground tunnels. The Vraxian assault had broken through at dawn, their forces overwhelming the human defensive positions in waves of chitinous armor and energy weapons that turned concrete to glass. She could hear them advancing, the clicking of their mandibles, the strange harmonic hum of their communication. 20 meters second, Maya checked her sidearm. 7 rounds left. She had made peace with how this ended. Then she heard something else. A different sound beneath the weapons fire and crumbling structures. Small, rapid footsteps. Panicked breathing that wasn't human. A Vraxian child stumbled around the corner. Maya's training screamed at her to fire, but her finger froze on the trigger. The creature was small, no taller than a human 5-year-old, its carapace still the soft amber of youth rather than the deep purple of maturity. It wore no armor, carried no weapon. Its 4 eyes were wide with terror, and a thin keen of distress escaped from its mandibles.
It saw her, froze for half a heartbeat.
Then it ran directly toward her. Maya's breath caught. Every instinct warred inside her. This was the enemy. This was a child. This was a combatant species. This was terrified and alone. Her weapon lowered before her conscious mind made the decision. The child crashed into her, small limbs wrapping around her armored torso with desperate strength. It was trembling, making sounds that needed no translation. Fear. Pure, absolute fear. Jesus, Maya whispered. She shifted her weight, trying to figure out what to do with the small creature clinging to her like she was the only solid thing in a dissolving world. That was when she heard the silence. The weapons fire had stopped. The clicking communication ceased. Maya looked up slowly and her stomach dropped through the ground. 50 Vraxian warriors stood in a semicircle around her position, their weapons raised, energy cells glowing with ready charges, but none of them fired. None of them moved. At the center of their formation stood a figure that made Maya's throat go dry. The Vraxian queen was 3 meters tall, her carapace a deep royal purple that seemed to absorb light. Elaborate markings covered her armor in patterns that spoke of authority older than human spaceflight. 4 arms held ceremonial weapons that were nevertheless fully functional. Her crown of natural bone structures rose like a jagged halo behind her head, but Maya couldn't look away from her eyes. The queen's 4 compound eyes were fixed on the child in Maya's arms with an expression that transcended species. Horror, recognition. Something that looked terrifyingly like grief. The child made a sound, a specific sequence of clicks and harmonics. Maya felt it vibrate through the small body pressed against her chest. The queen took 1 step forward. Every weapon in the Vraxian formation tracked toward Maya. Red targeting beams painted her armor in a constellation of death.
Maya's mind raced. The child was obviously important.
Royal, maybe. A hostage situation she'd stumbled into without meaning to. She could use this, bargain for her life, for safe passage. That was the tactical play. But the child's grip tightened, and Maya felt how violently it was shaking. "It's okay," she heard herself say softly. Stupid, talking to a creature that couldn't understand her. But the tone seemed to register. The trembling eased slightly. The queen spoke. Her voice was like crystal breaking, like wind through metal chimes. Maya didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone.
A command.
An absolute, unquestionable order. The warriors didn't lower their weapons, but they shifted, waiting. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. Maya looked down at the child, then back at the queen. This was it. The moment that defined whether she died here or walked away, whether first contact between their species ended in more bloodshed or something else. The child looked up at her. Its eyes were so impossibly wide, so filled with trust it had no right to feel for someone who should be its enemy. Maya made her choice. Slowly, moving with exaggerated care, she began to lower herself to 1 knee. The targeting beams tracked her movement. She could hear energy weapons cycling to maximum charge. 1 wrong move, and she would be vapor. She knelt in the rubble and ash, still holding the child, and met the queen's eyes. The queen went completely still. For 3 heartbeats, nothing moved. The battlefield held its breath. Then the queen lowered her weapons. All 4 of them, setting them down with deliberate precision. She spread her arms in a gesture Maya had never seen before, but somehow understood in her bones. A mother reaching for her child. Maya's arms ached from holding the small Vraxian, but she didn't move. The queen took another step forward, and this time the warriors parted to let her through. She moved with a strange grace, each step calculated and controlled, but Maya could see the urgency barely restrained beneath the regal bearing. When the queen was 5 meters away, she stopped, spoke again, this time softer. Still incomprehensible words, but the tone was unmistakable. She was asking, not demanding. The child in Maya's arms made a sound, a questioning trill that rose at the end. It loosened its grip slightly, turning to look at the queen. Maya felt her heart hammering. This wasn't combat. This was something far more dangerous, because it required trust across a divide that had been carved in blood and fire for the past 6 months of brutal warfare. "Okay, kid," Maya murmured. "I think that's your mom." She began to ease the child away from her chest. It resisted at first, clinging tighter, and Maya froze. The queen's posture changed subtly, tension returning to her frame. "Hey, it's all right," Maya said, keeping her voice low and gentle. "Look, see? She's waiting for you." The child turned its head, all 4 eyes focusing on the queen. Made another sound, this one uncertain. The queen responded immediately, a cascade of harmonics that sounded almost like a lullaby. The child's grip loosened. Maya helped it down, steadying it as its feet found the uneven ground. It stood between them for a moment, looking back and forth. Then it took a tentative step toward the queen. The queen dropped to her knees. The movement was sudden, graceless in a way that spoke to how little she cared about dignity in this moment. Her arms opened wider. The child ran. It crashed into the queen with the same desperate force it had used with Maya. The queen's arms wrapped around it, all 4 of them, cradling it against her chest. Her head bowed over the small form, and her whole body shook with what Maya realized were the Vraxian equivalent of sobs. Maya started to rise, to back away, to give them space. She made it halfway to her feet before a clawed hand caught her shoulder. She spun, reaching for her sidearm, but stopped when she saw it was one of the warriors. The soldier's other hand was raised, palm out, a gesture that might mean wait, or stop, or something else entirely. The warrior's head tilted, indicating she should remain. Around her, the other Vraxian soldiers were lowering their weapons, not holstering them, but pointing them at the ground. The targeting beams winked out one by one. The queen was still holding her child, but her head had lifted. She was looking at Maya with an intensity that made her want to step back. When the queen spoke, her voice carried a different quality. Formal. Weighted with significance. One of the warriors stepped forward. Its carapace bore markings Maya had learned to associate with command ranks. When it spoke, the words were in heavily accented but unmistakable standard English. Her radiance, Queen Thessera of the Vraxian Dominion, names you bondkeeper. You held what was most precious when death stood at your shoulder. This is marked. This is witnessed. This is remembered. Maya's mind struggled to process the words. The kid was scared. I wasn't going to hurt a child. The translator spoke again, this time after a brief exchange with the queen. You stood in fire and chose mercy. You are enemy, yet you held the air with gentleness. Why? Because, Maya said, and realized her voice was shaking. Because some things matter more than war. The translator went silent. The queen watched her with those alien eyes that somehow conveyed perfect understanding across the gap of species and language. The child pulled away from its mother enough to look at Maya, made a sound, then another, tugging at the queen's arm. The queen's head tilted in what might have been the Vraxian equivalent of a nod. She reached into a compartment on her armor and withdrew something small. She approached Maya directly this time, no hesitation. Up close, the queen was overwhelming. Raw power and authority radiated from her like heat from a star, but when she extended one hand offering the small object, her movement was careful, almost gentle. It was a crystal, no larger than Maya's thumb, faceted and glowing with internal light that shifted between amber and deep purple. "Royal marker," the translator said. "Hold this and no Vraxian blade touches you. Show this and every warrior knows you are under her radiance's protection. This is not given lightly." Maya took the crystal with trembling fingers. It was warm, pulsing with what felt almost like a heartbeat. "I don't understand," she said. "We're at war. Your forces attacked our colony. I should be your prisoner or dead." The queen spoke, and the translator's voice took on a strange quality. Reverent, maybe? Or awed. "War is the collision of nations. Battle is the trade of death. But you saw a child in need and your species' hate died in that moment. You became something else, something worthy of recognition." The child made another sound, insistent. The Queen's mandibles moved in what Maya was beginning to recognize as their version of a smile. "The heir wishes to know your name." Maya's throat was tight. "Sergeant Maya Chen, United Earth Defense Force, 3rd Battalion." The translator spoke to the Queen, who responded at length. The translator turned back to Maya. "Queen Thessara says the heir is called Kathira. She is the future of the Dominion. Today you held the future in your arms and gave it back, when you could have bargained, threatened, or destroyed. This will not be forgotten. The heir will carry your name in the chronicles of the royal lineage, and her radiance declares temporary cessation of hostilities in this sector, effective immediately so that both sides may collect their wounded and honor their dead." Maya felt like the ground was tilting beneath her. "A ceasefire? Just like that? You showed mercy to the most precious thing in the Dominion. Her radiance can do no less than match that gesture with equal weight." Around them, Vraxian warriors were already moving, speaking into communication devices, relaying orders. Maya could hear her own comms unit crackling to life with confused human voices, trying to understand why the assault had suddenly stopped. The Queen extended one hand toward Maya. It took her a moment to understand the gesture, but when she did, she reached down and placed her palm against the Queen's larger one. The contact lasted only a second, but Maya felt the weight of it. A bridge across an impossible divide, built on a moment of choice when everything else said to pull the trigger. The Queen gathered Kathira back into her arms and turned to leave. The warriors formed up around them, an honor guard escorting their sovereign from the battlefield. But before they disappeared into the smoke and ruins, Kathira looked back over its mother's shoulder and raised one small hand. Maya lifted hers in response, a wave across the wreckage of war. Then they were gone, and she was alone in the rubble with a glowing crystal in her hand and the weight of what just happened settling over her like snow. Her comms unit squawked. Chen, report!" "What the hell is happening out there? The enemy forces are withdrawing." Maya looked at the crystal, then at the path the Queen had taken. "Something new," she said quietly. "I think something new just happened." The debriefing lasted 6 hours. Maya sat in the prefab command center while officers from 3 different departments questioned her about every second of the encounter. They photographed the crystal from 16 different angles. They ran her through recognition software to confirm the Vraxian she'd met was indeed Queen Thessara. They demanded to know why she hadn't taken the heir hostage, why she hadn't used the tactical advantage, why she'd essentially gifted the enemy a propaganda victory. Major Harrison, her battalion commander, dismissed the others and sat across from her with exhaustion written in every line of his face. "You understand what you've done," he said. It wasn't a question. "I kept a scared kid from dying in a war zone, sir. You initiated unauthorized diplomatic contact with enemy command. You accepted a gift that could be interpreted as accepting their authority. You let them withdraw without resistance. The ceasefire is holding, sir. Both sides are evacuating casualties. That's 300 human lives we didn't lose today." Harrison rubbed his eyes. "The politicians are going to have a field day with this. United Earth Command wants you on the first transport to headquarters. The diplomatic corps is screaming for access, and the media somehow got word that a human soldier had a close encounter with the Vraxian Queen. What does that mean for me? It means your war is over, Sergeant, one way or another." He stood, moved to the window overlooking the damaged colony. "Off the record, I've been fighting the Vraxians for 8 months. I've never seen them do anything that suggested they viewed us as more than targets. What you described, the Queen disarming, the formal recognition, the ceasefire, that's unprecedented. So I did the right thing?" Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know if there is a right thing in war, Chen. But you did something human. Maybe that matters more." They released her 6 hours later with orders to remain on base and await transport. Maya made her way to the barracks, bone-tired and operating on autopilot. The other soldiers gave her a wide berth, their expressions ranging from awe to suspicion. She collapsed on her bunk and stared at the ceiling until sleep took her. The dreams were fragmented. Kathira's trembling weight in her arms, the Queen's eyes meeting hers across 5 meters of rubble, the moment when she chose mercy over tactics and changed something fundamental in the equation of their war. Red emergency lights flooded the barracks. Soldiers scrambled for gear. Someone was shouting about incoming contacts, about Vraxian ships in orbit, about possible bombardment. Maya grabbed her gear and ran for the command center. The corridors were chaos, personnel rushing in every direction. She burst through the door to find Major Harrison staring at a holographic display with an expression she couldn't read. "Sir, what's happening?" He turned to her. "The Vraxians sent a ship." It's broadcasting your name, Chen. It's asking for you specifically. Maya's stomach dropped. Is it an attack? No weapons, hot. It's a diplomatic vessel. They're requesting permission to land and specifically requesting your presence at the landing zone.
Why?
You're the one who apparently impressed a queen. 30 minutes later, Maya stood on the edge of the landing pad as the Varaxian ship descended. It was smaller than their warships, more elegant. The hull was decorated with the same royal patterns she'd seen on Queen Thessera's armor. The landing ramp extended, and a single figure emerged. Not the queen. A Varaxian warrior in ceremonial armor, unarmed, but carrying something wrapped in shimmering cloth. It approached Maya directly, stopping precisely 3 meters away. Sergeant Maya Chen, it said in perfect standard. I am Vorath, First Blade of Queen Thessera's personal guard. Her radiance sends greetings and gratitude for your protection of the royal heir. Maya stood at attention, unsure of the protocol. The child wasn't harmed. I'm glad they're safe. The heir speaks of nothing but the human who gave shelter when the world burned. Her radiance wishes to extend formal recognition of the Bond-Keeping Act. Vorath unwrapped the cloth, revealing a piece of armor. This is wrought from royal ore and blessed in the ancient way. It is offered to you as a symbol of the oath between keeper and kept. Will you accept? The armor was a chest plate, designed to fit over human proportions. It gleamed with the same purple-amber shifting quality as the crystal. I don't understand what this means, Maya said honestly. It means, Vorath replied, that you are recognized by the Dominion as one who held the future in her hands and chose preservation over advantage. It means Queen Thessera has declared you under royal protection. And it means that when this war ends, and all wars end, you will be remembered as the bridge between our peoples. It was lighter than it looked, warm to the touch. There's more, Vorath said. Her radiance extends invitation. When the ceasefire allows, when the politicians and generals finish their talking, she wishes to meet with you formally. To allow the heir to thank you properly, to discuss what comes next. What does come next? Vorath's mandibles moved in what might have been a smile. That, Bondkeeper, is why she wishes to speak with you. You showed her that humans are capable of seeing beyond the battle. She wishes to know if that vision can grow into something larger. The warrior bowed, a deep gesture of respect, then retreated to the ship. Maya watched it lift off, the armor heavy in her hands. Major Harrison approached from behind. Well, I guess you really did start something. Maya looked at the armor, at the royal patterns worked into its surface. She thought about Kathira's terrified eyes, and the Queen's relief, and the moment when everything could have gone differently. Maybe it's time someone did, she said. The ceasefire held for 3 weeks. Both sides used the time to regroup, to tend their wounded, to bury their dead. Diplomatic channels that had been silent since the war began suddenly crackled with cautious communication. Queen Thessera's willingness to negotiate was unprecedented. United Earth Command was suspicious but desperate enough for peace to explore the possibility. Maya found herself at the center of it all, whether she wanted to be or not. They transferred her to the diplomatic compound, a fortified structure that had been hastily repurposed for the peace talks. She wasn't allowed to participate in the negotiations. She was a sergeant, not a diplomat, but her presence was required. The Varaxians had made it clear they viewed her as a symbol of good faith. She wore the armor they'd gifted her. It had taken the human engineers 2 days to figure out how to properly secure it, but once they did, it fit perfectly. Maya caught herself touching it sometimes, feeling the alien patterns under her fingers. Ambassador Chen, no relation though they joked about it, briefed her daily on the negotiations' progress. The Varaxians were willing to discuss territorial boundaries, resource sharing, even joint scientific ventures. But they kept circling back to one central question. Why had Maya protected Kathira? They want to understand the human capacity for mercy, the ambassador explained. Their culture is built on strength, on dominance through superior force. The concept of protecting an enemy's young is alien to them. They view it as weakness, but they're fascinated by it. It wasn't weakness, Maya said. It was just the right thing to do. Try explaining the right thing to a species that's conquered 40 star systems through military might. They don't have a cultural framework for it. But they were trying to build one. That became clear when Queen Thessera herself arrived at the compound. The Varaxian delegation came in force. 30 warriors, 12 advisors, and the Queen at the center of it all, regal and imposing. Kathira walked beside her, looking around with wide-eyed curiosity that reminded Maya painfully of human children. The formal reception was tense. Human and Vraxian officials lined up on opposite sides of the grand hall, the space between them a gulf wider than the room itself. Maya stood with the human delegation, the royal armor marking her as different. Queen Thessara's eyes found her immediately. The queen spoke in her own language, the translator rendering it in real time. "I am Thessara, sovereign of the Vraxian dominion, voice of the matriarch council, guardian of the ancient ways. I come seeking understanding of the human who valued my heir's life above tactical advantage. Welcome, Your Radiance. We are honored by your presence and hopeful for productive dialogue." But the queen was still looking at Maya. "I would speak with the bondkeeper, alone, if protocol allows." The human security detail stiffened. Ambassador Chen looked like someone had just asked him to solve quantum physics with his bare hands. "Your Radiance," he began carefully. "Sergeant Chen is not a diplomatic representative. I do not seek diplomacy from her. I seek truth." The queen's voice carried absolute authority. "She touched my greatest treasure when she could have used it as a weapon. I would understand the mind that makes such a choice." Maya felt every eye in the room turn to her. Her mouth was dry. "I'll speak with her," she heard herself say. The objections came from 6 different people at once, but Ambassador Chen raised a hand. "Sergeant Chen is a representative of humanity, whether we intended it or not. If Her Radiance wishes to speak with her, perhaps we should allow it." Just Maya, the Queen, and Kythera, with security on both sides stationed outside. Maya had never felt so far outside her depth. The Queen settled into a reinforced chair, Kythera climbing onto her lap with the unself-conscious ease of young children everywhere. Those alien eyes studied Maya with unsettling intensity. "You carry the armor well," Thessara said, her standard better than the translator's had been. "It suits you. Thank you, Your Radiance. It's an incredible gift."
It is a statement.
"A declaration that what you did mattered." The Queen's mandibles clicked softly. "But I wish to understand why you did it. Your people and mine have killed each other for months. Territory has been claimed and lost. Resources have been destroyed. Why show mercy to the heir of your enemy?" Maya thought about deflecting, about giving a political answer. But the Queen deserved honesty. Because Kythera was terrified and alone, and I couldn't add to that fear. Because some things are more important than who's winning. Because I looked at your child, and I saw every child I've ever known, and I couldn't make myself pull that trigger. You believe in universal innocence? I believe children don't choose wars, and we don't have the right to make them pay for our failures. Kythera made a small sound, and the Queen's claws gently stroked the child's carapace in a gesture that transcended species. Our cultures are different, the Queen said finally. Among Vrakians, young are taught to fight from the moment they can hold weapons. Weakness is culled. Strength is rewarded. Your mercy would be seen as failure in our society. Then maybe it's time to question what strength really means. The Queen's head tilted. Explain. Maya chose her words carefully. Strength isn't just the ability to destroy, it's also the ability to choose not to. It's having power and choosing restraint. Your Radiance, you held the tactical advantage when you found me with Kythera. You could have ordered my death in seconds, but you didn't. You chose to understand first. That took a different kind of strength. You compare my restraint to your own? I'm saying maybe we're not as different as we think. Maybe both our species are capable of more than just fighting. Kythera wiggled out of the Queen's arms and approached Maya. The child's movements were more confident now, curious rather than fearful. It reached out one small claw and touched the royal armor. Kythera wishes to thank you, Thessara said softly. The heir has asked every day when we might see you again. Maya knelt so she was at eye level with the child. Hey there, little one. You doing okay? Kythera made a series of sounds looking back at Thessara. The Queen translated. The heir says you are warm, that when you held them it felt safe. They wish to know if all humans are this way. Maya felt her throat tighten. I'd like to think most of us try to be. When we remember how. The Queen stood, moving to stand beside her child. I brought you war, Maya-chan. I sent my fleets to conquer human territory because we needed resources and expansion. I saw your species as obstacles to be removed, but you showed me something I did not expect. Compassion without calculation. Mercy without negotiation. It troubles me greatly. Why? Because it suggests we were wrong. Not in our strength or our victory, but in our fundamental understanding of what is possible between species. Thessara placed one clawed hand on Kythera's head. The heir is the future of the Dominion. If the future can trust a human to keep them safe, perhaps the present can learn to trust as well. Are you saying you want peace? I am saying I want to understand if peace is possible. Your people and mine, we speak different languages and follow different gods, but we both love our children. Perhaps that is enough foundation to build something new. I'm just a soldier, Your Radiance. I don't have the authority to make promises. No, but you have something more valuable. You have proven by action that your species is capable of seeing us as more than enemies. That matters more than any treaty. Kathira tugged at Maya's armor, making questioning sounds. The queen smiled, actually smiled, mandibles shifting in unmistakable warmth. The air asks if you will teach them to be brave like you. Maya laughed, the sound unexpected in the heavy moment. I wasn't brave. I was terrified the entire time. Then teach them to be terrified and still choose mercy. That may be the most important lesson any child can learn. The formal negotiations stretched across weeks that blurred into months. Maya remained part of the process, an unlikely bridge between species that had been trying to destroy each other. She learned Vroxian protocols and customs. She spent time with Kathira under Thessera's watchful eyes, teaching the young heir about human culture while learning about Vraxian traditions in return. Slowly, impossibly, something like understanding began to grow. The warriors on both sides remained wary. There were incidents. A human patrol that fired on Vraxian scouts, a Vraxian vessel that strayed into restricted space. But each time, instead of escalating, both sides pulled back. Thessera and the human diplomats worked through each crisis with painful patience. Maya watched it happen from her strange position between worlds. She wasn't military anymore, not really, but she wasn't a diplomat either. She was something new, a role that didn't have a name yet. Ambassador Chen called her to his office 6 months after the initial encounter. He looked tired but hopeful. We have a draft treaty, he said, sliding a data tablet across his desk. Both sides have agreed to the major points: territorial boundaries, resource-sharing agreements, joint scientific stations, even cultural exchange programs. Maya scanned the document, her heart lifting. This is incredible. It almost didn't happen. There's a faction on the Vraxian Council that views this whole process as weakness. They wanted to continue the war. He paused. Queen Thessera overruled them. She cited the Bondkeeper incident as proof that coexistence was possible. You saved more than a child that day, Sergeant. You saved the possibility of peace. I just made a choice. The right choice, as it turns out. He smiled. There's a formal signing ceremony scheduled for next month. Both sides are bringing their highest officials, and Queen Thessera specifically requested that you be present. Front row, wearing the armor she gifted you. Why? Because you're the symbol of what this peace represents, the moment when someone chose to see the enemy as a person first. The signing ceremony was held on neutral ground, a space station maintained by the Confederated Worlds as a diplomatic venue. Maya stood in her designated position, the royal armor catching the lights as delegates from both species filed into the grand hall. She saw familiar faces. Major Harrison, now promoted to colonel, leading the military delegation. Scientists she'd worked with on the joint research initiatives, diplomats who'd spent months negotiating the treaty's fine points. And then the Vraxian delegation arrived. Queen Thessera entered like she owned the universe, regal and powerful and impossible to ignore. Beside her, holding her hand, was Kathira. The young heir had grown in the months since Maya had first held them, taller and more confident. Kathira saw her and broke free from the queen's grasp, running across the hall with the same desperate urgency as that first meeting. But this time there was no fear, only joy. Maya caught the young Vraxian and lifted them in a spin, laughing as Kathira chittered in delight. Around them, the hall went silent. Asanas and Vraxians alike watched the scene, with expressions ranging from shock to wonder. When Maya set Kathira down, she looked up to find Thessera approaching. The queen's eyes held something Maya had never seen before: warmth. Real, genuine warmth. The air has missed you, Bondkeeper, as have I. I've missed you both too, Your Radiance. The ceremony began. Speeches were made in both languages, translated for all to hear. The treaty was presented, a physical document inscribed with the agreements both species had fought so hard to reach. Human and Vraxian leaders signed it with elaborate ceremony, their movements coordinated to symbolize unity. But when it was done, when the treaty was officially sealed, Queen Thessera did something unprecedented. She called Maya to the stage. This peace, Thessera said, her voice carrying across the hall, began not in negotiation rooms or council chambers. It began in a moment of choice, When Sergeant Maya Chen held my air and chose mercy over advantage, she created the possibility for everything that followed. Without that moment, we would still be at war. Without her example, we would still be blind to what could exist between our peoples. The queen removed something from her armor. A medallion, brought in the same royal ore as Maya's armor, inscribed with patterns that seemed to shift in the light. I name you Keltoreth. In our oldest language, it means she who bridges what was separate. Wear this and know that you carry the gratitude of the Dominion and the hope of two species learning to walk the same path. Maya accepted the medallion with shaking hands. The weight of it was more than physical. Thank you, Your Radiance. I just did what anyone should do. No, Thessera said firmly. You did what very few would do. You saw past your hate and fear and found compassion. That is the foundation of everything we build from here. Kythera tugged at Maya's hand, making insistent sounds. The queen laughed, a strange crystalline sound that made the other Varaxians go still with surprise. The heir wishes to make a speech. I have told them they are too young, but they insist. Maya knelt beside Kythera. What do you want to say, little one? Kythera spoke in halting standard, each word carefully practiced. You saved me. You held me when scary. Now we friends. Now, everyone friends. 'Cause you showed way. The hall erupted in applause. Not just humans, but Varaxians as well. Their clawed hands creating a sharp percussion that blended with human clapping into something entirely new. Maya pulled Kythera into a hug, tears streaming down her face. Yes, little one, we're friends. And that means everything. Later at the reception, Maya found herself surrounded by diplomats and officials from both species, all wanting to speak with her, to thank her, to understand how she'd made the choice that changed everything. But she kept looking at Kythera, playing with human and Varaxian children alike in a corner of the hall, joy transcending the barriers of species and language. Ambassador Chen approached with 2 glasses of something that sparkled. You did it, Sergeant. You literally changed the course of history. I just held a scared kid. We saw past the war to what mattered more. Not many people can do that. He raised his glass. To the Bondkeeper. To the bridge between worlds. Maya clinked her glass against his, but her eyes were on Thessera, who was watching Kythera play with an expression of such profound hope that it hurt to see. It's not finished, Maya said quietly. This is just the beginning. There's still distrust, still anger, still people on both sides who think this peace is weakness. Then we keep building, one choice at a time. One moment of compassion at a time, until the bridge becomes strong enough to hold everyone. As the celebration continued around her, Maya touched the medallion at her chest. Keltoreth. The bridge between what was separate. She thought about the moment in the rubble, Kythera's weight in her arms, the choice that shouldn't have been difficult but was. She thought about how easy it would have been to go the other way, to let fear and hate make the decision, and she thought about the future that now stretched out before them. Uncertain, fragile, but possible. A 2 species learning to see each other as people first and enemies never again. Kythera laughed, the sound clear and bright, and Maya felt something settle in her chest. Not peace, not yet, but the beginning of it. The first real breath after years of holding it in. That, she thought, was worth fighting for, worth choosing mercy for, worth building a bridge across impossible divides. Because sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply refusing to hate, and sometimes the future of 2 species begins with one person choosing to hold a frightened child instead of pulling a trigger. The war was over. The peace was just beginning. And Maya Chen, sergeant-turned-symbol, bridge builder, and bondkeeper, stood at the center of it all and dared to hope that this fragile new world they were building might actually survive.